All right. So we're back in our follow-up episode to episode 5 of Unfiltered with Blake, Chris, and Alan. And we're going to talk about where we landed on our picks from our prior episode. So I had 17 winners without the Open and the All-Star, 19 if you include them. Blake had 18, 19 if you include the Open and the All-Star, and Chris with 15, 16 if you include the Open and the All-Star. So I feel like that's a pretty significant number when you consider the way this car has leveled the playing field. I don't think many people expected us to have this many winners in a season still. I think everybody expected the cars, the Hendricks to get stronger, the single car teams to get weaker. But the winners we picked, and then the number of winners since this car has come around, doesn't seem to align with what everybody's expectations was. What do y'all think about that?
I think that I think like last year we had 16 winners, I believe. Um, with you had
With an
Busher and Chastain win the playoffs.
Yep.
I believe that put it at 16. So I mean we're not far off from what actually happened this past year. Chris is right on. So I mean,
Yep.
and to be honest with you, I might have had I might have had one more if I just totally blacked out that not Chris Berry, Josh Berry was in the 21 now with Penske affiliation. So uh, I might have possibly had him winning a race, uh, but I'd
Yeah,
have to go back over the entire schedule again.
that was Barry was one that I left off my list, but that was one that I mean, he does well on the smaller tracks, but running with that organization that closely with Penske, it's going to be hard to count him out at the restrictor plate tracks as long as he's got their help.
Yep, I agree with that.
I just think, I think the big thing for me on whether or not to use Barry, I'll be watching him very closely because he is a good short track racer, and I wanted to pick him at some of the other places, especially with how Penske's been strong at the small tracks. But he's not getting to keep Rodney, so he's got to learn Penske over SHR. He's got to learn a new crew chief, new system, the Penske way. I think that will almost send him a step back for a while. He did show speed at times last year with Rodney, and so I was hoping. I know they were hoping to even keep themselves together. They mentioned they'd shopped themselves around as a duo and just weren't able to keep it together. So,
I don't think there's any doubt though that they'll run better with him behind the wheel than Harrison. I believe that there's no doubt in my mind or your guys's that he'll run
oh
head and
yeah.
shoulders better than Harrison. He might not win and get a luck out win at Daytona, but you know,
Well, I mean, when
I
you compare their
standing
pedigrees, to
wise.
me, that he should, just based off the performance and the numbers. Josh Berry, yeah, he won. He contended for a championship in Xfinity his first year. He won a bunch of short track races. He's won multiple short track championships, almost every big major short track or super late model race across the country that pays big money, where Harrison Burton doesn't have all that to his name. So, I mean, he won a couple times, or maybe it was just once on the Xfinity side of the house when he was with JGR. And again, you're in JGR equipment, you're expected to win. Where he was in JRM equipment, which is hit and miss. They're sometimes on it and sometimes not. So I think the fact that Josh did as well as he did throughout with a failing SHR was pretty good.
Well, and I think you'd also have to look back even at the lack of experience he had.
Uh-huh.
He had runs in the night when he was filling in at Hendrick
Yeah.
when Chase was hurt. He ran decent in that car.
He finished
Actually,
second at Richmond to Larson.
yeah. I mean, I don't. I get what you're saying about gelling with the team, but I think he's old enough that I don't think that that'll affect him as bad as it is some of these younger kids trying to learn the cohesiveness with the team as opposed to just getting in and driving the car and letting
Yeah, he
everything
is
else.
in his 30s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's
Yeah, he's
34.
basically he started
Yeah.
at what are most guys' prime age. So all
Yeah.
that time they get to build into their prime, he's not getting that. He's basically starting like it's now or never almost.
Yeah, same with Van Gisbergen, and he's older than that. I
Yeah.
believe he's
I mean,
36.
So something I realized when I looked through the picks, I only picked Joey Logano to win a um you know a non-points event. I didn't pick him to win an event. He's the reigning champion, and he's
Wow.
also you know won two of the next gen championships, and his teammate won the other one. So I'm
With
I'm
that
looking
being
back at
said,
my
does he
picks. I'm
make you?
surprised I only picked him
He probably
for All
doesn't
Star.
make your playoffs then, correct?
If he makes the playoffs, I think it'll be on points.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, the way you have it laid out, you probably didn't look that deep, but
Yep.
if do you have 16 winners by cutoff race?
No, I'm thinking
Okay.
there's only going to be like 12 before we get to the cutoff race, just based
Okay.
off the way the schedule is. I think there's a lot of races and discipline types like what Chris picked with SVG that are going to be snatched up by guys that are going to
Okay.
fall right into their wheelhouse the way the schedule's laid out, to where I think some of our other winners will come much later in the season because you're going to have
Got it.
a totally different playoff this year in terms of like some of the way that some of the tracks that got brought in versus some of the homesteads early this year. You know, some of those kind of things. We've got Mexico. We've got 3 or 4 road courses in a 7 race period. There's just a lot of unique stuff. I think that's going to make it where you're not going to have too many winners before we get into the playoffs.
Okay.
That's just my take on it. So
So
going
who did?
back at it, go ahead.
I was just putting this into who did we not pick to make to win and
Well, going down the list, I'm the only one of us that picked Austin Cindric, so I'm out there on a branch all by myself. Um, but I feel like now we're in what year 3 of this car with him, and he won last year.
no,
Well,
he
with
was
this
the
car
first one in the
specifically,
next gen.
you know
Yeah,
what?
he
You're
was the
right.
first.
Okay,
He
so
won
this
the
is what
first
year
next
5
gen
for him
race at
then?
Daytona. He run 22, 23, 24, 25 is his fourth
Let me
year.
look. Yeah. So this will be his 4th year.
Yep.
I feel like with his teammates winning the last 3 championships, it's one of those you got to step up. I don't care that your dad's name is Tim Cindric, and he basically runs Penske for Roger.
Yeah.
It's now you're expected to deliver at this point. What do
Well,
y'all?
you would say that, but they're bringing Custer back just because of who his dad is.
You're not wrong. I don't know
But
that.
he did win a championship in Xfinity. I
Yeah,
mean, they almost have to, in my opinion. I mean, who else were you going to sign?
And LaJoie's losing his seat to probably Cody Ware.
yep,
Well, that seat was Cody's. And you
yeah.
just had to go through some legal nonsense.
So that's the first one that only I picked. I'm all out there on that branch by myself. And then we all had Blaney winning multiple races, minimum of 3, including the All Star. So that one's not too big a surprise. Like we mentioned at the beginning, I'm the only one who picked Logano to only win a non-points race. I don't know what I was thinking there. How I left the reigning champion out. I must have pulled a Jeff Gluck on that one, where he's like, "This guy's gonna run
The,
awful, and he's gonna make me look stupid."
the Alabama water.
Yep. None of us took Barry. I didn't take Alex Bowman, but you both did. You both have him winning in the same state, just not the same track. One of you's got him winning Texas Oval. One of you's got him winning Dakota.
Yeah,
So,
that's funny.
but you both believe Texas is going to be his place. We all had Chase Elliott winning one. We all have Byron winning at least one. Chris with 2.
I'm
Blake and I
very interested to
selfishly hope
see who
he
had.
only wins one.
Yeah.
That's probably not realistic, but and then we
I
all
mean,
basically
if you really look at William Byron, some people get mad at me for saying this, but half his wins. I mean, he is there in the top 5 when it happens, but he backs into them. Half of his wins he is backed into.
Oh, we're
He
back.
he's in there. He's up top 3 probably, but something happens to the leader and he gets the win. So like
Yeah,
That's how two of his wins happened last year. Was the guy leading most of the race fell out, and there he was to take it.
yeah, more
So I
often than not,
mean,
he's definitely not the dominant car on the day that wins, for sure. That he
yeah,
doesn't go out there like
he's
Larson
always
comes out
there.
and
I
wins.
give him that. I give him that. He's always there. But half of his Cup wins, he has fell in the right place at the right time.
Yep. Well, it just seems like him and Rudy, they find something and then it falls apart for whatever reason. Like to keep them in that position where they can even capitalize on those opportunities. And then as the year goes on, either everybody catches up or I don't know if they're off experimenting or what, but like take last year, for example, won several races in the first handful, first 10, and then were nowhere to be found after that. And then they started the playoffs and they moved along through consistency, but they never really threatened to win. They
No,
were just there in the
it,
event of a mistake.
if you listen to their radio compared to other big teams, whether it be Byron, whether it be Willie B or Logano or Larson, those three teams, they are calm and collected on the radio. You listen to 24, they panic a lot. Rudy's like, it's okay, it's okay, just freaking out. It's okay, it's just, and just talks fast and, just doesn't seem to really be able to just be calm and calm him down and say, okay, it's fine. We'll get it back. If something does happen, they freak out. You're on mute, I think, buddy.
No, I'm just doing a quick count. So we
Okay.
all have Larson winning the most wins of the season. In
Okay.
theory, he should be our champion. If especially if they make any changes to the championship, we'll see what they do here because they haven't
Chris
announced
had
anything
him
yet.
win the most, correct?
Uh, you and you and Chris both had him winning 10 times overall.
I had him 10 times.
Yep, I had him nine.
Jeez, I did not think I picked him that many times.
Yep, you had him 10. I had him nine. Chris had him 10.
Okay.
And they're sprinkled all throughout the season. Uh, you know,
Well, he's done it once.
yep. I think, but when you look at his seasons, even his 10-win season, you and I have talked about it before we even started this podcast that uh, there's been plenty, he and Cliff have left so many wins on the table already. He probably should be sitting at 35 wins easily right now in his career, at least.
Oh, he's
Maybe,
at 30
maybe,
right now,
maybe
right?
40 with Cliff,
Yeah.
just since he started and got in the 5 car. Just
Yeah.
because, the year he won 10 and the championship, he probably could have won 15.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
It
And
was actually
last year he
17
should have had
late race stuff.
probably 10 to 12. He won 6, but he easily should have had at least 10.
Texas, Iowa come to mind right off the bat. He had those tracks just locked up. Michigan, all three of those he wrecked out and
Yep.
or had issues, and that's just three right there, just off the top of my head.
When you go back and look at it, I'm expecting the same thing again. Like
Yeah,
he stands on an island all by himself. I don't think, honestly, I think if it was him and Cliff at JGR, I think you'd still have the same kind of numbers. I think he and Cliff just gel well together. That I don't think it'd matter if he was in a Toyota at this point, but
no.
they're just that on it. But he's really the only one that any of us see doing that kind of work. Which, if he does that for 4 or 5 more years, if he is able to actually do what we think he can do, he's going to be right there behind Jimmy Johnson. If he does that,
I think
8, 9 wins, between 6 to 9 wins a year for the next 5 to 7 years, and then he hangs it up. That would be at the end of his what would be that prime window. He's going to be sitting right there between that 65 to 75 win number easily.
I think Seabell and probably Blaney are the only other two that could possibly contend year in year out with him on the amount of wins throughout the season that potentially
I'd put
are the
I
closest one.
that conversation if
Who is
20
that?
get together, I would put Reddick up there with those two. With those,
Yeah, if 2311 and Reddick can, become more reliable overall week to week, I agree. I think he's right there in terms of a 5 to 6 win a year season. Larson, though, I think when you look at it now and how hard it is to win, he seems to be the only one who can easily kind of get there every week and is definitely in the conversation every week. Everybody else seems to have like they know when they show up there, it's not their week. Certain ones have certain areas, but for them and that team right now, it just seems we don't know how long that will last. Kind of like, I go back and I look at years like the year Kyle Busch pissed away a 10-win season in the chase format, had 8 wins going in, and then they just blew up all their, good momentum. At that point in time, I thought he was going to catch Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson in those wins when they were racking off all those wins in the M&M's cars. So, but life has a way of derailing that. So,
Oh yeah.
Blake, you're the only one that took Chase Briscoe. So we're going to find out if your faith is misplaced or not, sir.
I took him twice, right?
Yep. Phoenix won in Richmond in the
He's
fall.
with Joe Gibbs now. I mean, he's with the 19.
Yeah.
I don't see he's with a better overall team, and he made it to this. He was in. Did he get cut out of the second round or third? But he made
He
it
got cut
through the
out this
first
after the
round.
second round.
He made it through the first round that time. He made it when he won his second year. He made it to the round of 8. So I mean, he's going to be in a better team, more just more better people around him. So I just feel like if he doesn't win, obviously I'll be shocked.
Now you're also the only one who gave Ty Gibbs a win, and you gave him 2 in points races. Chris and
Yep.
I didn't give him points based wins. Chris gave him the open.
Yep.
So I've seen the speed. I haven't seen the mental discipline to finish the races. So you
Yeah.
think this year he's going to finish the races?
And,
I
and
think
that's
he's.
go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say I think he's real close to being the age that Jeff Gordon was when he started winning, and I mean, he obviously has raw speed. You saw what he did
Yeah.
in Xfinity. It's just this car is a little bit harder to drive, so it's taking him time. But it's there. He qualifies well. He usually falls off about the halfway point in the race. So I think once, maybe not this year, but the year after, he'll start showing speed week in, week out.
The only thing that makes me doubt the prediction of you having him winning this year is based off the comments he had about the crew chief that he then gave up at the end of last year, where he's basically, we've plateaued and he's only in his second year in this, in these cars. Not really. He acts like there was nothing left to learn there. I think that kind of mentality is going to bite him. That he's almost needs to have somebody come along and straighten him out. And I think maybe Denny Hamlin would do that, but Denny's probably got too much on his plate right now to do that, to worry about getting Ty straightened out.
Well, he don't
Or
have
he
nothing
probably
on the
would,
plate.
mentor him normally under that JGR umbrella.
I think the lack of comment from Logano or from Hamlin on that almost it almost tells me that the Hamlin being at JGR is probably not going to be much longer. The simple fact that Hamlin didn't have something to say about that, it amazed me, honestly.
Yeah. Well, that and the no notice change of Hamlin's own crew chief. Like I think we probably all agree this is probably Hamlin's last season with JGR, more than likely. I mean, FedEx has pulled chocks. His crew chief now is the competition director, which is going to be good for all of JGR, but it's going to suck for Hamlin, who's ending that prime window of wins. He's trying to get to 60. I don't know if he gets there.
I'm going to be
Honestly.
contrary on that. I think he's got 2 years.
Oh, I'm not saying he doesn't have more time in Cup. I just think his time is done at
I know. I
JGR.
meant the kids. I think he's got 2 years.
Okay.
If he doesn't win by the 600, I'll be wrong. But yeah.
Now my one concern is if he doesn't stay with JGR, he can't go to his own cars now because they've got 3 charters and all 3 are full. You've got Riley Herbst, Tyler Reddick, and Bubba Wallace.
Not to mention that third charter is not technically owned by him. It's
Right.
owned by
So,
the Herbst group.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's like the Herbst family. From what I was listening to, basically the Herbst family is funding the purchase of the charter so they can put their kid in the seat. So that's an interesting perspective. If what Landon um,
Parker.
and Parker were talking about on their podcast earlier this year, I was like, oh, that's interesting because they had talked about how that had been done before with, you know, team, shopping around gives the drivers an asset. Really, you can take your charter to a team instead of the teams owning the charter. The driver owns the charter, gives them something to shop around. So that's a different dynamic.
So how many did we have Denny winning?
I had him for 3, you had him for 2, and Chris had him for 3, including the Clash. So
Okay.
Chris has him sweeping Bristol. I have him winning at least one of the Bristols, Pocono and Darlington. You have him for Dover and Indy.
Yeah, that Indy one hurts me.
Overall, though, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We really don't have JGR winning that many overall races when you look at it.
It'd probably be more than what they did last year, though.
Just because they ended on a down cycle, so they're gonna and we saw when Hendrick was down, it's not hard to get off, it's harder to get back on. We've all had Bell winning multiple. None of us picked Priest with RFK. I don't think that's a surprise.
I can't believe Chris didn't pick him. He loves Priest.
Yeah. I still don't. I mean, I understand he comes with sponsorship, but I don't know.
I mean, I think it's kind of the similar mentality of picking a Josh Berry, but I don't think he hasn't done the same things. He's a good modified guy,
He just
good short track guy, but he doesn't have the same accolades to his name.
well, and I've seen more overall performance just in the short time that Barry's been around than I've ever seen out of Priest.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying he comes from that similar like mindset mentality of an older driver that's got more experience that you can kind of work around.
Yeah.
But I don't understand if you're Brad and you're gonna build a team and you have all these different drivers that are out there and available, whether it's Xfinity truck, we're waiting on Zane Smith to sign something. You've got Priest. Priest might show some speed. Honestly, I think I would have taken Corey LaJoy over Priest if I had to put somebody in that car because at least LaJoy's not going to go tear my stuff up.
That's what I said.
I would have taken LaJoy because LaJoy is good with sponsors. He's good at getting small sponsors, and he's not going to go tear my stuff up. He's going to contend at the plate tracks or the drafting stuff, and
And
he's
it already
improvement in road courses. So
yeah. And it already showed when LaJoy, even for the short time he just went over to RWR, had, 3 sponsors went with him.
Yep. So I don't really understand that. So that must be a mountain of money he's bringing, or there must be something Brad sees the rest of us don't.
It's Kroger. Kroger already had a relationship with him when he drove the 47 and the 37.
Yeah.
They liked him a lot. Apparently, I guess he's good at
Yeah.
sponsor events.
Well, and they got
Sometimes
the time.
I was going to say sometimes all they care about is how you are with the sponsor. That sometimes they don't care how you actually run. The
True.
sponsor wants you to be a pretty face and somebody that interacts with their people good. And if he does, maybe he did that, and that's why they wanted to bring him again.
Yeah. I mean, we saw that with Jamie McMurray and with Eric
Yep.
Almirola. They clicked off wins every couple of years and they contended every now and then, but for the most part, they were field fillers for a lot of their career due to whatever circumstances. Some of it's out of their control, but when they were in good cars, they were capable of winning. The rest of the time, Johnny Morris really liked McMurray, which I thought was an odd fit, being that
Well,
McMurray
they're both
was
from
one of the
Missouri, I
prettiest guys in the
believe.
garage at the time.
Missouri is the reason
Yep.
because of that. So I'm shocked that Clint Boyer never had Bass Pro Shops. To be honest with you.
Yeah. I'm just really surprised
Yeah.
that he lost Jack Daniels, truthfully, just because, that area. And then liquor. I mean, Clint's a party guy. Just seems like right up his, I don't know.
I don't
I
think
can't think
they
of a
only
better.
got one win with him, right?
Yep. I mean, the only thing I would have done different with Clint if I'm gonna lose Jack Daniels is I would have gone and gotten him like a Red Bull and vodka sponsorship and been like, "Let's go," you know,
Yeah.
party shooters and Jello shot, because Clint's your party guy all the way to the end.
Yep. What team we got next?
So then we move on down into Trackhouse, and we have them winning, but we have their most dominant winner is going to be SVG based on all our picks. Me and Chris both
I,
picked Suarez to win Mexico.
were you just on Roush and I moved you on?
Yeah, we're fine.
Well,
We all
I was
had
going to
Busher,
say,
and we all have Busher winning plate races. So, and
okay,
Brad winning plate races.
okay.
So, we think RFK is primarily going to win at the drafting stuff. We think that basically
I mean,
all of Trackhouse's wins are primarily going to come in road races this year. Though we all did give Chastain either Iowa
yeah, I
Gateway or
got
Nashville.
you.
So,
Yeah.
but we'll see. We'll see what happens with Chastain. I want him to do well because I like Bush beer from a sponsorship standpoint. Their cars are always good looking. I was worried that Trackhouse was going to be kind of bland with it. So I want him to do well because I want more sponsorship activation because I want more cars for my shelves. My
You
wife,
don't have any cars behind you. What are you talking about?
they're all over there. I got some of them down there. I'm too lazy to unbox them now that I'm going to move and pack all this shit up.
Yep.
Now, we
So you said
surprisingly
we're
said this is the year that Spire wins. I
okay.
gave him Coda and the Open. Blake gave him Phoenix, but Chris said no to any wins for them this year. You did say that you thought they had some potential with Hocevar specifically, but maybe they're
Yeah.
a year out still from that developing.
The one that I mean, it's hard to say that he won't win, but
Yeah.
I think if it is with the overall speed that he showed, I mean, at almost every track, but I think if we do see him, I think if it's going to show up, it's going to show up at a restrictor plate track just because for whatever reason he seems to be able to put himself in the right spots. And that would I could see him being, I wouldn't be surprised to see him a winner at a restrictor plate track. It wouldn't be a surprise winner for me, even though I don't have him on the list.
He wouldn't be a surprise winner for me. I think what's going to derail his winning efforts is all the running over everybody he did last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got that speed to get up in that top 10, but the people he ran over last year are going to make it hard for him to finish up there. And so he's going to have to earn, those finishes and that respect that he kind of burnt up last year. But I do think what I think will happen is when he does win, it's not a if he wins. He's going to win. I don't know if he's going to win this year, but if he doesn't win this year, I think for certain he'll win the year after. I think once he wins, it'll be because kind of like once Larson got to the back end of his time with Chip, and then when he got with Cliff, understanding you don't have to run 100% every lap or 110% every lap. 95 will get it done until it's time to go. I think once he gets that how to put the full race together without running over people and get his temper under control a little bit more, then he'll be there because he still showed some of that to me. And obviously, Dale Jr. asked him when he was going to put him in his cars, like, if I come over here, if I bring you over here, you're going to wreck all my cars. Can't have you doing that. I can't afford that. So I think that's the only thing holding him back from being, a championship contender, or at least a playoff contender on a regular basis, is just getting that temper, that the crazy switch on the back of his head under control.
Yeah, I agree. You had Michael McDowell winning a race, did you not?
I did. I think McDowell's going to win Coda. I think that or road racing background of his, Coda being a non-traditional NASCAR road course, I think it's going to line up well for him now that he's going to be in a faster car.
Okay.
None of us took Herbst, which doesn't make too much of a surprise to me. He's an unknown quantity. You're the only one who gave Bubba a win, Blake. I know why I didn't. Why did you? He's losing his crew chief, getting a new crew chief. 2311 is kind of unstable. What makes you think he's going to win? I know he's a known winner. Like he's won. We know he knows how to win.
He, I mean, he is driven. I mean, they all are, but I just think that the Kansas is his style of track. I believe that's where I had him
Yep.
winning,
Yeah.
and with the fact that he didn't run that well at Kansas last fall, kind of, I think that one race specifically is going to put some drive into him that he previously might have let go a little bit of, and that's why I felt he could win there is because he has won there before. That's where he got his first non-plate win, and it just I don't know. I just think by that time, him and his new crew chief will have gelled, and it's a potential for it to be there.
Okay. Maybe we'll see.
I
I
just
just
I guess I got a
I
lot of faith in Denny picking the right guy for him. I guess.
I don't think it's my reasoning for not picking him has nothing to do with, I mean, I believe Bubba's, he's already proven he can win in all three levels. He's got trophies in all three.
Yep.
And he's contended. For me, it's the 2311 as a whole. Normally I would pencil them in for more, but the lawsuit I feel like is just going to hang over that team for
Well,
the
I mean,
next 12 to
they
18
were
months.
they were right on the verge of making the playoffs on points, and then people
Yeah.
started winning left and right and knocked them out.
Yeah, both
So I
them and
mean,
Busher got knocked out
yeah,
by, surprise winners.
yeah. So you got to look at that too. I mean, he is consistent enough to be in the top 16 in points. I believe when they not got knocked out, they were 12th in points, 13th in legit points. So they're there. It's just getting the rest of the way there. So that's why.
Unfortunately, he seems to have some of the same tendencies that Gibbs does too. Lets his emotions get in his way.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. He's got that chip on his shoulder. And I know later, like on XM, Larry Max said it, Dale Jr. said it, like a couple different people now within the industry have said, like, he's got to let that chip go. Like, you've made it, you're there, you're not going anywhere, you're good now.
Maybe him having children will level him out.
Could be. Some guys it does. Some guys it slows them down. Some guys it just stabilizes their performance.
Right.
We all have Reddick winning. I think that's pretty much a given. I think he's just too good not to. Doesn't matter what's going on. As long as they've got decent cars, I feel like he can get it done. I'd say we're probably all in the same boat there.
And the
I
variety
agree.
of track that I mean, he's another one. Like I said, I think more consistency needs to show up, but he can almost win anywhere.
Yeah. Of the drivers that are in the roster field today, honestly, him and Bell are the only Reddick and Bell are the only two I think that can go toe to toe with Larson if they're all if everything is good in the right in the in their worlds, where the three of them can pretty much go toe to toe to toe. I think they're the only three. Maybe Blaney toward the end, but I think Logano's time is kind of where he was coming up as the next best thing. I think that time is kind of come and gone. Same thing with Kyle Busch. They're on the back end of them being the next hot thing. They can still get it done, but their ability to rattle off big numbers, I think that's kind of gone now.
And Logano's still young though.
He is just,
He's,
you know,
he what
he,
is he 30,
it's
31?
just his. I think he's still going to win more championships because the way he's a tactician now.
Yeah.
Where before he won a lot of races where he was basically like running through people. Now he's very calculated. And I
Yeah.
think he's just transitioned to how he's going to win. He's not going to win as often. He's going to win when it matters most, which is how he
Right.
got these championships, the last two, more than anything.
Oh, and yeah, he even talked about that at the end of the season that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
Their focus didn't seem to be the entire year on going out and being the hottest car on the track. They needed to be the best when they needed to be the best.
Which, I mean, I have no fault in, Blake and I talked about that at the end of the last year when we were getting this started, just in general, that, leading into the final race, like I had no problems with that mentality and approach because it's the same thing Jimmy Johnson's team did. All he did was they took the same approach Chad and Jimmy did to the chase and adapted it to, you know, the round of, the round of 12 system. And if you look at the number of times they've been in it, Joey is, I brought it up. Let me pull up my notes here because I don't know if you got all this or not, but just to give you some stats. All right. This system's been around for 11 years. Joey's made it 6 times. He's won 53% of the races in it, and he's won the championship 50% of the time that he's made the final four. So, I mean, there's been 110 races since the 2014 playoffs were done, 25 total drivers. Joey stands alone with 13.6 of the races won in there by a good margin, by over 3%. That's pretty damn impressive when you think about it. But he's just out there.
Oh yeah,
Six
seeing that.
Final Four appearances.
Yep.
3 of them he's won.
Yep. If he makes it to the final four, that trophy is his unless you go take it from him, which is pretty crazy. So again, what the hell was I thinking? I took him for nothing. It's an odd year. Maybe he's gonna break the
Yeah,
odd.
it's an odd year. It don't matter. Ask
year.
Bianchi. Bianchi's not picking him for nothing.
Yep, it's the odd year. He's gonna have the odd year slump for him. All right, so FRM, now it's official. Noah's number is the 4. Zane Smith is actually signed. He's got a crew chief. He's actually now like planning. He was a question mark when we did our projections. I had him in there, but it wasn't official whether or
Number
not.
38.
Yep. But Blake, you had Noah winning the Open and Gilliland winning Atlanta. Me and Chris didn't have them winning anything.
Yep.
So I think it'll be interesting to see because they're losing their most senior driver. It's a very young stable when you look at it.
Yeah, they were talking in the nice grade here today. They're 25, 25, and 24. They all three have multi-year contracts, and that's one of the reasons they lost
McDowell.
McDowell. They lost McDowell because wouldn't give him a multi-year contract. So they were talking to the guy that runs the show over there today, and he said he likes the fact that they're all young, that they can build off of them and go forward with them, and because they know they can build off that, that's why he gave them all multi-year contracts. So that bodes well for the drivers that they feel comfortable enough with them to give them all multi-year contracts.
I mean, that's good for Todd Gilliland, and it's his dad, right, David?
Yeah.
Okay, so and good for Noah and good for Zane, who's a 2-time truck champion. Noah, Xfinity championship contender, multi-race winner, truck title contender, multiple winner. But I can't help but based on that news, I didn't hear the actual interview, but if I'm McDriver, it only solidifies my reason to leave because that just pisses me off. I helped you take this team from nothing, where you were basically competing.
Well, I think when they lost him, they reevaluated
how they were doing business.
And they looked at it. That's what I missed some of the conversation, but what I got out of it was when they lost him due to the 1-year contract deal, they said, well, we need to reevaluate, and that's why they did multi-year contracts because they didn't want them to feel like they weren't valued because that's what essentially happened to McDriver. He felt
won him a Daytona 500, which brought him a ton of money.
They also said that the partnership with Ford, them being a top tier Ford team now, that gave them the ability to be able to sign multi-year contracts because they have that partnership with Ford.
So did they take, because you've got Penske, RFK, FRM, and you had SHR. I'm assuming SHR losing its status as a key partner is what allowed FRM to become a key partner.
So this past year was the last year for Stuart Haas to be a tier 1. They were not going to be a tier 1 after 24. That's one of the reasons they left was because they were losing the number 1 tier money and they couldn't afford it anymore. That's one of the reasons.
Okay.
It wasn't just that Stewart was wanted out and all that stuff. There was money behind it or lack of money behind stepping down.
Okay. Well, that one will be interesting. I mean, it's good that they've got the plan to build behind them, but you're you've got two bold picks there. I think it's going to be a little while before because they've lost all that veteran knowledge. I think that's key.
Yep.
Um, for feeling out the cars. I think at least they're lucky that they had McDriver in it last year to at least get the first year of dark horse knowledge under their belt. If they had to start a whole new car, I don't know that they'd do too well,
Yeah,
honestly.
and we spoke offline for a minute about this, but they were saying on NASCAR radio that a few of Noah's cars starting the year are SHR cars. So he's was comfortable. I don't agree with that at all because he did not run that well with Stuart Haas cars. So why would you bring those cars over? It
Yeah,
doesn't
if I
make
remember
sense.
correctly, the front row cars most of the time outran them. I don't know that I'd want to get in a Stuart Haas
That's what
car
I'm
as a
saying. Why
NASCAR.
would you want to do that? Just, I mean, maybe if they bought the car that Briscoe won Darlington, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
If they, if they brought the car over that Priest ran three straight top tens with, okay, I get it. But outside of those, why would you want to bring any of them?
yeah,
Doesn't make sense. But
I
I
mean,
don't
McDowell,
run a race team.
I mean, other than yeah, the restrictor plate tracks, but McDowell had what, 6 poles last year?
right.
Yeah, but after he won the pole on the non-plate tracks, he fell to like 15th almost instantly.
Oh, I get that, but falling back to 15th and trying to come from 35th to 15th is is a big difference.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
yep. I mean, at least
Yeah.
those cars had speed to
They
get.
definitely
No, no,
had qualifying speed for sure.
yeah, no one never seemed to make it to the 15th.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, starting up front and falling to 15th is a lot better than yeah, trying to make it up.
yeah. Noah definitely didn't do that much that I recall anyway.
No, no.
I
He
think
started
no,
off the year strong, and then they fell off real quick.
Yep.
When
yeah,
they were all
I,
what I think happened was when they all thought they were competing for their jobs to stay there before the team was disbanded. I think once the team announcement happened, that changed the commitment to performance for
Yep.
some more than others.
yeah.
When they all thought they were competing and everything was still in, you saw a marked difference in their performance at the beginning of the year versus how it all came apart afterward.
And that's one of my worries with Noah is he's another one, just like with Bubba, just like with Hocevar. Uh, unfortunately, he seemed to be able to compensate for it a little more. But even Kyle Busch, you gotta stop letting your emotions get the best of you.
Yep.
And Noah's one that will do that. His emotions get the best of him, and he'll throw it right down the damn toilet.
Yep. All right. So colleague, none of us took them. I don't think that's a surprise.
I'm shocked that Chris didn't pick Dylan to win any races.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you're just being a dick.
No way.
Well, I mean, I even though Allmendinger's coming back up and he's a good road racer, he's been the rest of the field has moved up, and we brought in the next Allmendinger with SVG.
So
So
he's
I
yeah,
think
he's
his
honestly he's
advantage,
better than Allmendinger ever was
yeah,
when it comes to that.
just like how at the time Ambrose was the best at doing what he did, and then it moved on and became it slowly transitioned, then became Allmendinger. Well, now we've got SVG or Juan Pablo and Allmendinger, and then now we're into it's going to be probably the SVG era, but at the same time, unlike when the other guys were around, because there's so many road races in there, everybody else has had to step up their game. Reddick's won a bunch, you know, Larson's won several,
Larson,
Byron's won several, uh, you know, Chastain,
Busher came back last
Suarez,
year and won one.
Busher. Um,
Yeah,
it's hard
Buscher's been a
not
part
to.
of a lot of them. He just only finally won one.
Yep. So I would say it's going to be hard for Allmendinger to climb back into that winner's circle based on who's in there now.
Yeah. It
I don't
could
know what the hell
happen,
they're
but
doing hiring Ty
it's not
Dillon.
going to
That's got to be
be.
a
Yeah,
money thing.
it's all money, buddy.
Well,
All
and
right.
Ty Dillon, even the money thing on that one, I really don't know. How did you end up with picking somebody like Ty Dillon even over again back to Corey LaJoy? I mean, you've got somebody. I think LaJoy's outperformed how numerous years that Austin Dillon or Ty Dillon's been in the sport.
When they
Yeah.
signed Ty, that
Never.
stuff with when they signed Ty, that stuff with Corey hadn't happened yet. I think that they probably would
No,
have
I
hired Corey over Ty if it didn't look like he was staying.
that's true, and I think that's one thing where we kind of went back and touched base on with McDowell. Went down with McDowell at front row, but I really think, I mean, for lack of a better term, Corey got shit on by Spire. They drugged
Oh
their
yeah.
fucking feet. They completely drugged their feet and screwed him on any opportunity to take
Yep.
a decent seat anywhere else. Even in the Xfinity series, all the damn seats were full before they finally pulled the rug out from under him. And it was, yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, not just because I like Corey, that was just wrong. I mean, that was wrong. That was horrible business sense, in my opinion.
No, I'm in agreement with you. I wasn't very happy to see how they did everything with Corey. You know, he finds out, surprise, you're out of job. Uh, and we're not coming back. They're making all these hires. They've purchased
Yeah.
charters and they're going to hire Rodney. Okay, great. So Corey's over here thinking like, sweet, I'm going to benefit. We're going to get these good people in house. I'm really going to be able to show what I can do. We're getting these people, but they're not for you.
Yeah, he knew the writing was on the wall when they said that they didn't say Rodney Childers is coming in to crew chief for Corey LaJoy. They said Rodney Childers is coming in to crew chief to 7 next year.
Yep.
He knew the writing was on the wall then, and
Yep.
a lot of us didn't really see it. But then we're like, wait a minute, they usually do say
I thought it was
he's gonna.
interesting, that they didn't pair, they didn't, they specifically went out of their way not to mention the two of them together in any press conference whatsoever when they were making those announcements. But in Corey's podcast, he did say that, he was looking forward to working with Rodney next year. So he must have had some kind of, at least prior to whatever decision was made, inkling that he thought maybe there was still a chance there to get it done. But, you know, I
Yeah.
feel I agree with you. I think they shit on Corey overall just because he took you from a team that used to buy charters just so you could sell them and make money, and you were more in like the marketing business to you went full time, and he slowly worked you from a top 30 team to a top 25 to a top 20. And yeah, he regressed for 1 year, but it's like they ignored all the other hard work. Everybody has an off year, and they
Yeah.
expanded. When they started and he was just
I
the
mean,
Spire car, then they added the 77 and the 71. Like, okay, I don't really blame Corey for the backtrack and performance. They added a bunch to their plate all in, pretty much one shot.
I think what hurt him was that Hocevar was outrunning him week in, week out.
Oh, for sure.
A
I don't think that
rookie
helped him at
was
all. Having a
outrunning
teammate.
him, and the same equipment. That's not going to help anybody.
No, I agree, but I am curious how much of
no,
most
but
of our success came at the expense of Corey. The working with Trackhouse to field Zane for that year, like all those pieces together. How much of that was at the expense of Corey?
well, not only that, but I think they should have at least given him a fair shake. And he kind of alluded to it because I listened to his podcast just
Yep.
like I listened to the rest of them weekly. And the one thing I noticed that they never did, and we've watched it with Hendrick, we've watched it with Gibbs, we've watched it with Roush, you've watched it with every major team throughout the sport. The one thing they didn't do last year, and they had plenty of time to do it in the last 10 races before they made all the final decisions, was change the damn crew chiefs. Why didn't you do a crew chief swap and see if that was the ultimate reason why there was no performance in that team, but there was in the other two?
Yep. Yep.
I think that maybe Hendrick. I'm saying this based off of what Brad Keselowski says. I think Hendrick must have really wanted Justin Haley for whatever reason. I don't get it. I don't think any of us get it. But for whatever reason, Rick Hendrick wanted Justin Haley in a Chevrolet, and he wanted it so bad he spent a lot of money to make it happen. Because I thought, as well as I think you, Chris, I thought that Haley had a multi-year contract with Rick Ware.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did
I
too.
didn't think it was a 1 year deal. I thought it was multi-year. So something happened to buy that contract out to make this happen. So I think
Well,
the whole thing is suspicious as hell.
I agree I'm in agreement with both of you because if I remember correctly, in some of the discussions at the end of last year when he was going to Rick Ware, Haley was talking about like when he went to sign and talk with Rick Ware, he wasn't just meeting with Rick, he was meeting with Brad Keselowski because of the Brad Keselowski alliance. And Brad was ultimately the reason why he signed to go over there. Brad was making the investment into building up that Ford program with them. And, he wanted Justin there. So,
yeah.
yeah, I agree.
Brad seemed a little slighted and almost backdoored with that comment he made about Hendrick.
Yeah, which is not the first time he's gotten backdoored and screwed over by Rick Hendrick.
No, no, not at
Yeah.
all.
Well,
Um, he talked, he
I
actually
know
talked
you
about
have a
that.
contract, bud, but we're going to bring Mark Martin in.
Yeah.
Yep. He talked about that with his discussion pretty candidly with Harvick earlier this year. I don't know if you listened to Harvick's happy hour, but
Oh,
when Harvick did his
yeah.
segment with Brad, that was one of the things they talked about was the Rick decision to go a different direction and
Oh, yeah.
everything there.
Me and Blake had what, probably 2 or 3 days of that conversation. I
Yeah,
think, I think
you
Hendrick.
were pretty livid.
Well, not. And I mean, I get where somebody like Hendrick wanted Mark in that car, but I think Hendrick screwed up. I'm honestly, I mean, I like Brad. My wife's a huge Brad fan, but I think Hendrick screwed up by not putting Brad in that damn car.
Oh yeah.
Even
Yep.
as a Mark Martin fan, right?
Yeah, even as a Mark Martin fan, I mean, I at that point with all the bouncing around he had done, I was excited. Honestly, I was excited to finally see Mark in a decent. Well, I guess I shouldn't say decent because he had good runs at Ginn and DEI both, but just a
And
top tier
MWR.
Chevrolet team.
Yeah.
Well, MWR was Toyota though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm just saying like
that was after the five.
Yeah,
he had fast
I,
cars
I'm
because he had Rodney.
aspect that I'm just looking at it as even though I grew up a Mark Martin fan, I hate Ford. I'll never own one. And so to see Mark finally go to a decent Chevy, all the damn Fords all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. My disappointment with that whole deal was kind of like when you look at and we've seen multiple teams do it where they cut their nose off thinking they were going to get the next best thing or shoot themselves in the
Yeah.
foot, getting rid of Joey Logano. Logano goes to Penske. Penske builds a team around him. Lo and behold, now he's a 3-time champion, tons of wins. Same thing with Joe Gibbs investing in Kyle Busch instead of Hendrick. What could have been if Hendrick had just, put in the investment to, mature him, tame him down, you know, just those kind of things. Now, maybe they don't do that if they don't go somewhere else with a chip on your shoulder. You just don't know. Or Brad going over to Penske, not only does he go over there and win, but he's so driven by being, spited or slighted by Hendrick that you see it in his driving in that championship year when he is literally like cutting the nose off Jimmy Johnson's car coming up out of the turn in Texas. Like, I dare you
Yeah,
to fucking wreck me. Like, let's go.
yeah. It definitely opens up some opens your eyes to a few different perspectives on the shit that happened in Texas with Gordon,
Yep.
the way he raced Jimmy that year in 2010. Yeah,
Yep.
it definitely makes you go back and relook at some of this stuff and think, damn, that it makes sense.
Well, RCR and Hayek are the only two teams left where we actually had some winners. I think Chris left them off his list. Let's look. No, Chris gave
Yeah,
Kyle Busch a win.
I
I
had Kyle in.
Yep, I have Kyle winning and Austin Dillon winning. I'm out on a limb with my Austin pick, and Ricky Reckhouse, Spinhouse, Spinny
I know I didn't
Reckhouse.
have Ricky.
Um, Nobody had him but me. But I think that the money that they got from, the uptick in performance, this change in leadership, uh, with the rebrand and everything, I think that'll be good for them. And I just think the new people coming in to RCR, the people they're gaining from the SHR departure, the people that are going to be happy to have jobs, to have team owners that are present. I think that's going to be honestly, for all those people at SHR that had to get new jobs, I think that's going to be their biggest, motivating factor is they've gone to RFK, they've gone to SHR, or from SHR there to HMS to RCR, to FRM, like to Spire, like all these places are benefiting from it. All the places they're going, the owners are at the track every week. They're
Mhm.
in the shops every day or multiple times a week, where Cole or Gene and Tony were not present owners. And there's something to be said about a
Yeah.
present owner in business, period. And you see it at the success at the tracks.
Yeah, I think Gene Haas is more concerned about his F1 team than he is his Cup team.
Yep. So we'll see what happens with them. But none of us took the Haas factory rebuild as a win.
Well, real quick on the hike, I'm curious on if they are going to self-sponsor a lot or if they have sponsorship lined up.
Yeah, they haven't announced anything in place of Kroger, so that'll be interesting to see what they're going to do there.
I forget what they own. I think it's some sort of seafood company or something. I can't remember, but they own some sort of big company. So I'm curious if they're going to self-sponsor or if they've got sponsorship lined up.
Well, the only multi-car team left out there that none of us touched with a 10-foot pole was Legacy Motor Club. Uh, None of us gave Jimmy and his one-offs, Eric Jones or John Hunter Nemechek.
Well, their legacy is just legacy, and
Yeah,
unless they actually get some more from Toyota and Gibbs within performance, I don't.
yeah,
It's hard to pick them. I almost picked Eric Jones at one of the Darlington races just because it's Darlington and he runs good there no matter what car he's in.
yeah.
So,
I
but
I wanted to do the same. The more baffling decision to me was his decision to re-sign with
Yeah.
Legacy and not go somewhere else.
like a
That
3-year contract, I believe.
Well, I want to say, didn't he just? I feel like he just signed an extension though.
It
So,
was 3-year extension, I believe.
but so that to me is just looking at the landscape and where there were options. He's not. It's not like he's an unproven commodity. He is a champion. He is a multi-time race winner. He's gone
Two
out
of
there
them being
and
the
won.
Southern 500.
Yep, he's won Darlington twice. He's done it in an underfunded, at the time, RPM car. I mean, I don't know what else he can do.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
I,
I was going to bring him up when we were talking earlier about some of the like the drivers that Gibbs and teams like that have pissed off.
yep,
Just not made them mad, but just pissed away the opportunity to have a driver that I think the kid has the talent to go out and do what Logano's done, what a lot of these
yeah,
guys have done. He got the short straw.
yep. He
Yeah.
got the short straw. Well, I look at these other teams they're full. You look at where Austin Cindric, for example, or Josh Berry, or Alex Bowman. Um, Probably Chase Briscoe. In my mind, Ryan Preece. Up until Brad took over, Chris Buescher. You know, there's plenty of these seats that I would have easily slotted Eric Jones into if he was available over some of these guys at the time, that I didn't understand why they didn't when he was first available at the 43. And again, when he became available again, you know, you could have taken, to me, Eric Jones, Southern 500 winner twice, Daytona summer race winner, multiple time Xfinity winner, truck winner, and you take Justin Haley. What?
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
would you not have gone and I would have gone and bought him in a heartbeat. If those are
Yeah.
my choices, I'm going to get Eric Jones.
Well, along with Eric Jones, you got to remember he took Matt Kenseth out of a ride.
Yeah.
He kicked Joe Gibbs picked Eric Jones over Matt Kenseth, who won races for him every year he drove for him, I believe. And you're going to kick him out, and then you kick Eric out for Christopher Bell, which now is probably looking good. But you could have very Truex out or Denny Hamlin or whoever
Well, I'm
for
just
to keep
wondering,
him.
think about this. Think about the people that have gone through Joe Gibbs's door. 'Cause we're done with our winners list now. But just the what ifs. If Joe Gibbs had kept Jones, kept Logano, has Bell, and now Ty Gibbs, think about the talent behind the wheel if he had just shucked Hamlin, who's he's won perennially, but he's only been good for one or two other than the one off year where he went toe to toe with Harvick. If he had gotten rid of Martin Truex, same reason, you know, he basically had, he had an opportunity. He could have gotten rid of Truex and kept one of those guys. Just the number of wins and championships they probably have right now if he had kept those guys and the longevity in his stable, as opposed to probably in the next 2 years, if we follow what you're thinking, Blake, or the next year, if Chris and I are right, basically you got 12 to 24 months, you're gonna have to fill that 11 car or not fill it. But if you don't fill it, you lose the charter because they're grandfathered in unless they fill it. But
I mean, Corey Haim's waiting in the wings.
Yeah, I was going to say you've got Heim.
I agree, but except for why is Heim not in a ride? It's got something to do with Ty Gibbs from what all the conjecture in the garage is.
Well, if it's not Haim, it'll be Sawalich or one of the other kids they have this year. I mean, they'd be stupid to do this one, but they brought back what's his name that was in the nine last year.
Oh, yeah, Brandon Jones.
That
Yeah,
Brandon Jones that they keep going back and forth with. I mean, he's big with Menards.
Oh,
So I mean, sometimes like we brought up earlier, sometimes it's sponsorship driven more than it is anything else.
at that point,
So
you might back Paul though.
do what?
I said at that point, you might as well just bring back Paul.
yep.
Oh God.
He's not wrong though. I mean, Paul. Say what you want, but Paul Menard won the Brickyard 400. Don't matter how it happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they had
That's
a extra long tank fuel line.
Yeah,
Air
yeah.
Hog put it in for him and everything.
he got lucky because Gordon was fucking coming.
Yes, he was.
um, but so something we haven't talked about when you look at these drivers here, I think this is the last time you're going to see a driver lineup like this where the teams don't necessarily get the drivers they want. Now that the new charter has been signed and is going into effect, and the teams are supposed to get 50% of the money,
They're going to start be able to
they're
get
they're going to be able
drivers
to pick
based
the
on
ones they want
talent.
instead of the ones that can buy the ride.
Yep,
I think this is the
I agree with
last
that.
opportunity for anybody who can't do the job to sit up there that maybe doesn't belong at the cup level. If you don't have a long-term contract, I think the next time your seat comes up for renewal, you're probably gone.
And honestly, if the sport is going to go this direction, that's exactly what needs to happen
Oh,
because
I agree.
if you take a sport that's now been around for what 80 years,
7
76
years.
years.
We're going toward 80 though.
yeah,
This year is 77.
but yeah, for the better part of 80 years, and you've now, I mean, you've completely shit on underfunded teams. An independent will never come in sport again. We'll never see it.
Nope.
Not like you. And you're not going to have guys come in. You're not going to see somebody come in and bias it. Basically, what I'm trying to say is we need the sport to get to where we can honestly say when those commercials come on and they say you're going to watch the 40 best drivers in the world, it should be the 40 best drivers in the world, not just 11 of the best drivers in the world, and then another 29 of the ones that can afford to be there.
Yeah. I think the way the new financial model is going to work this time around, and we'll see. It's going to be a 7-year experiment, but if it holds true and the interest is there at the end of the next 7 years, I think when that 7-year period is over, I think we are at a Formula One level of when it comes to driver lineups. I don't think you're going to have any more journeyman drivers in the top level, and they shouldn't be at this
I
point.
don't know about that.
I
Yeah,
not that you can't work your way
a
there,
true
but I don't think you're going to have. You're not going to be able to get there because of daddy's money. You're going to have to be that. You're going to, basically, you're going to have to be Kyle Larson. You're going to have to be Tyler Reddick.
Well, isn't
You're going to have
Larson
to be.
technically a journeyman?
Hmm?
Isn't Larson technically a journeyman?
He is, but
Because
what I'm saying is
Chip
you're not.
Ganassi brought him
Sorry,
in
I used the wrong term. What I'm saying is you're not going to have the guys that show up that. You're not going to have Brandon Jones in the Cup
Okay.
Series
Yep.
ever.
Yep.
That just kind of strokes along. You're not going to have Paul Menard ever in the Cup Series. You're not going to have Trevor Bayne or any of these guys that couldn't produce, really never should have been there. But either the money was so good at the time and they could take it. But at that point, I think you're going to have in order to be there to compete for the purse money, you're going to have to go for A-list level talent all the time. You're not going to be able to go for C-list or even B minus. You're going to need B plus or better every time. And I think it'll end up putting on a way better show long term.
Yeah, it will.
But I agree with what you said, Chris. Like the days of startup teams, that's over. I think even though NASCAR under the agreement has 4 charters for a potential new manufacturer or new team or whatever, I'd say if you want to come in, you're going to have to take somebody's spot. So somebody has to leave for you to come.
Yeah, I mean that's what happened when Dodge came in.
Yeah.
Dodge came in. They bought Bill Elliott Racing, and they changed the number from 94 to 9, and they made a new team, and then they got in with the Bill Davises of the world, and it wasn't Chip Ganassi. It was Evernham was Bill Elliott Racing.
Yep.
So the they got in with Felix Abatis. So so that's what the new manufacturer should have to do. This holding a charter to let another team come in is silly, because they just need to do what the other Toyota did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Red Bull was coming in, but outside of Red Bull, you had Michael Waltrip Racing, and you had which I think that was a new team, I guess. Yeah, so
yep.
You had Michael Waltrip Racing was new, and you got Red Bull out of it, but outside of that, everything else was they grabbed up other teams, and that's the way it should be. The whole point of getting a new manufacturer is to help get the money spread around to where nobody's a tier 3 team.
Yep. So with that, you brought up prior to the Christmas break the announcement that Honda, Nissan, and who's the other one? Is it Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi, maybe?
Yes.
All right, so they're all merging. NASCAR keeps touting a potential third manufacturer. Will this new super manufacturer be the one, or you still think it's going to be a Kia or Hyundai?
No, I think that's possibly what they're going to have to do to rebrand, and then come into NASCAR. I don't see a Kia coming in. I would like it because I think the K5 would look good as a stock car, but I don't think it's big enough to really be in the mold with it. But Honda obviously has a car that is that size. Mitsubishi does as well, so they can just pick whichever one out of the fold they want, because they're essentially a GM now. GM has, Buick and GMC and all their stuff, so they're essentially going to be a new GM, and they're going to pick probably Honda and come in with their, what would that be, the
probably the Accord.
The Accord. That's what I was trying to get to. So
Civic and Xfinity series would be my guess.
It's too small.
Well,
it'd probably still be the
Supra's
Accord.
tiny too. So I mean,
yeah, you're right. You're right.
I was going to say the K5 would, I think would you would go toe to toe with the Supra.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But they'd have to run the same thing in Cup if they did come in Kia. I mean, I think the only thing bigger than a K5 is a Stinger, and
Yeah.
it's more but it's the same line as the Supra as well. So it's small and compact, and I can't fit in it at 6'5", and neither can you, Chris.
Oh.
I'd like them to see it. I don't know what car they'd run in Xfinity, and they don't have a truck, but I would love to see Hyundai come in because I think the Genesis G70 would make a badass looking race car.
Nothing says you don't that you have to come in all three series. I don't
No,
believe.
no, I agree, but I mean, for most of them,
And
value is
Nissan,
there
with
to give you the
Nissan being a
trucks.
part of it, they do have the Titan. So the Titan can come in under the Honda branch.
Sure, we can pretend that's a truck or a
The
rip line.
the
It's got
the
a
new
it's
the
got a
newer
rear
Titan.
differential that's like the size of a grapefruit compared to like Chevy and Dodges. They're
I'm going
they're
with the
size of a
size
freaking pumpkin.
comparisons right now, and the Titan is the same size as the other trucks now. Now, when they first came out, they were not Titans.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not a big truck. What I'm saying is if you get up under, you pull up the skirt and you look under it, it's got a rear differential for a four-wheel drive that's the size of like a grapefruit. And then I
Is
go over
it
to a
giving
Chevy and it's
consent?
like the size of a friggin' pumpkin. So there's a difference in how much torque and real power is back there.
Is the Titan giving consent for that skirt raise, sir?
Nope, we just violate. It's Alabama. We just violate.
Oh my God.
They just put a full size truck body on a friggin' side by side is what they did.
Mhm. Exactly. They're like, this is a Can-Am. We're going to put a full-size body on it. Call it a Titan.
Oh shit. I regret making that statement now.
All right. Anything else? Do we want to take our list of drivers and break them down into who we think actually makes the playoffs based on all our wins? Or you want to save that?
So basically, trying to look at who would make it in outside of the winners.
Yeah. So we have all our winners of your winners that you picked and win. So that means, all right. So the Glenn is before. So I have Austin Cindric then in theory making the playoffs. I have Blaney making it.
Todd Gilliland.
We all have Blaney making it.
Yep.
You guys have Logano making it.
Larson.
Yep. We have Bowman making it because he's going to win early. We have Elliott winning early. We have Byron winning early. We have Larson winning everything. Chase Briscoe potentially fills the slot.
I would have Suarez in.
Yep. Ty Gibbs. So I'm just counting it up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So far we're at 9, and we're not even halfway down the list of drivers. And there's 6
Yeah, it's a little
spots.
different because we each have different.
Yeah, I'm just saying I'm
so.
looking across all 3 columns and like they all have like pre-playoff wins in their column somewhere. So Hamlin, that's 10. Christopher Bell makes 11. Keselowski makes 12. Buescher makes 13. Suarez makes 14. Chastain makes 15. Van Gisbergen makes 16. McDowell would make 17. Hocevar would win in the playoffs, so he's not going to count. Balls
And
win in the playoffs, he wouldn't count, but Reddick would make 18. Gilliland would make 19 if he pulls off Blake's wild card prediction. Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon make 20 and 21. Well, there's only 16 spots, so this should be interesting to see which of those 21 guys actually make the 16.
yeah,
But we have them all potentially qualifying.
right.
So if you had to pick from our list of winners, who's the 5 that come out? I'm going to say Stenhouse for me is my first, and then Cindric would be my next.
Probably Gilliland. I mean, it's just a guess, but that's probably definitely one.
I'm going to say McDowell would be another. He's a wild card, but I think he can get it done. But that's a big lift at Spire. They've never contended for a win. So
this one you guys probably would not agree with me on, but we we are guessing. We all three are guessing that SVG is going to win a road course. But if he doesn't win one of those, what, 4 road courses,
I,
he's not
There's
going to
5.
make the playoffs.
Oh, I agree. But I mean, there's 5 up for grabs before we get.
Right, but I'm just going off. He essentially, based off our thoughts on SVG, he
Yeah.
is not going to make the playoffs without one of those 5 tracks being a winner.
no,
Agreed.
I'm I am excited to see where he ends up by the end of the year, because I know Martinsville last year, second to last race. I mean, he went through. They had a couple issues at the beginning of the race, but he stayed, got himself back on the lead lap himself, drove back to the lead lap, and then finished 12th in that race.
Yeah,
I mean,
and he's going to be in a better car.
yeah, yep. I mean, he's got the potential to. I know I've heard a couple of these guys talk about that. Well, I just don't see it translating. I don't see him learning anything enough to be consistent in these cars, which I think is horseshit, because I know the Xfinity cars really don't translate to the Cup cars. But how many times did he start in the high 20s, mid 30s in the Xfinity race, and by the end of the race, he's in the top 15, backside of the top 10? I mean, he
You're
did
right.
it. He did it a lot.
I have no doubt that I honestly think he's gonna, I don't feel
It's
like
just,
bold prediction. It might be when you ask the folks in the Cup Garage, but I honestly think not because of wins. I just think on outright, if you just gave him 36 races, I think he's top 18 in points by the time 36 races are over. I
I
think
was gonna
he's that good as a multi-time Super V8 car, which is a very similar chassis underbody style to this car. He's that good at what he's shown he can do so far that I think if you gave him straight up head to head 36 races, and he's going to get to go to a lot of these places for either a second or a third time for the handful that he did get to do last year.
So what you're
We
saying is
saw.
if he doesn't win, he is on the cusp of being in the playoffs at race 26.
Yep.
He
I
is
think
right
he's
there.
on points alone. I think he's going to be just on the outside by the time we get there. And I think if he doesn't, then he'll be the highest non playoff finisher for the season.
So P17.
Yep. I think he finishes P17, if not P18. But I
Okay.
think he's easily capable of finishing
I
P17.
can honestly go with that. I just wanted to say if he didn't win one of those road course races, I don't think he makes it.
I agree. I mean,
yeah,
I think it's a lot to ask. Uh, but with 5 chances, I think, you look at what he did last year and the handful of opportunities he did, and then the first year at Chicago and then at Indy. Like, I have a hard time believing he's not going to, but the field is the field. And if I have to take him versus the field, do that 5 times, that's going to be hard.
Yeah,
Say that some of these other guys aren't going to get it done.
right.
as long as he doesn't have to battle Austin Hill, he's got a pretty good chance.
But I do think that, for sure.
I thought they were best friends now.
That was the
Yeah,
best.
Like
That was the
that's
best.
weird.
Their best friends now. He doesn't have to deal with him, right? Like Austin Hill
yeah.
doesn't deal with him. But I will say,
They're as good friends as
his
Austin Hill is with his old teammate.
Snyder or damn it,
Yeah, I'm having a hard time too.
Sheldon.
yeah.
Yeah, Sheldon Creed.
Well, I think the difference for SVG is going to be now he has something to race for. Where before he was respectful of what everybody else had going on at these races. He didn't want to be a reason why somebody didn't make the playoffs or somebody got kicked out of a round or whatever. He would give them what they gave him. Well, now this
Yeah.
is his sole focus. I think that's also going to be a major factor in how he finishes. He's going to learn, but I think by the time we get to the halfway point of the regular season, if the other guys haven't been paying attention, I think they will have seriously misjudged the competition when it comes to him.
Oh yeah, I think these guys are going to have an eye opener when it comes to what he can and can't do in these cars.
Yeah.
He's the only driver in the field that does the heel toe
Yeah.
that Ricky Rudd used to do, to my knowledge.
And that comes in play more places than they like to think it does. They all think it matters so much at the road courses, but I mean, that's a big factor when you're talking about Martinsville and you're talking about Richmond and you're talking about Bristol, like the way you do
They
braking and
they
arcing in the
shift a
corners.
lot more, way more than they used to in this new
Yeah,
car.
yeah. Even part of
Not that, but what do you think? What do you think the chance mileage? And looking at the only driver I can think of that's done it. I mean, there's a lot of guys in the field that are great at fuel mileage races, but look at what Tony Stewart was able to do that year, clutching it going into the corner.
Yep,
I
and
think it's
Brad at Kansas or Kentucky. Yeah, I can see him because of his footwork skills, milking the gas and
yes,
saving the tires.
yep, yeah.
You know, I think especially if they bring a even softer tire to Martinsville next year, it wouldn't surprise me to see him in the top 5 at Martinsville, just because
Right.
of the way you'd have to do the braking in the corners, and now he's not worried about having to stay out of the way and not disrupt somebody's playoffs. It's actually his race as well, but really he needs to run well.
So
So
who else gets kicked out?
I think out of my list, who I could see not making it, and like I said, I would probably be Suarez. I mean, I think he got the greatest chance going into Mexico with the experience, but we talked about it at the same time. He's another. I mean, he can be his own worst enemy too.
yeah, I mean Suarez definitely has the skill and the talent, but I think bringing SVG in as the season goes will relegate Suarez to the 3rd driver on the totem
Yeah.
pole there. And as a result, I think you'll see that pressure, kind of like it did to Corey with Hocevar, chip away just a little bit at a time. And that could have Suarez miss it. Honestly, the one that the what I would say is going to be the surprise to me if he doesn't make it, doesn't win before the playoffs, 26 chances. Honestly, Hamlin.
Yeah.
He's the one I can see missing it from a big name standpoint, just because of all I lost my crew chief, I got a new crew chief, and I got the lawsuit turmoil, and that's a lot for him. He's been playing it cool and collected, but we've seen how it ultimately impacted the finish last year.
Yeah.
They
He
stumbled.
says he thrives off chaos, and I don't believe it for 1 second.
Well, I'm not gonna say he doesn't, but
I think he drives off other people's chaos, but his own chaos, we've watched. He did it. I mean, how many times has it bit him in the ass? How many times has he, by his own chaos, has he lost a championship?
yeah,
He knows how to take advantage of somebody else's, but he doesn't seem to be able to ever handle his.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Of all the big names, if somebody's going to miss the playoffs, even though I didn't give Logano points win, Hamlin's my one that's going to miss.
and I think yes, for me that would just kind of be. I mean, I have him winning next year. It's still weird to me why Texas stood out on having Bowman win, but Bowman would be the other one that I think if he's not gonna, it just
I can't agree with that. He ran way too well in the playoffs for me to think that he'd have a downslide.
nah, I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
let me
he's
ask you about this then, Blake. Do you think the rumors of him not having a ride and getting replaced had anything to do with him maybe stepping it up? I mean,
Oh, I mean,
I
yeah,
think him
but
I
he
think
showed now
him
that he can.
finding the feel again after hurting his back was the biggest setback,
Yeah,
and he's
it
finally
wasn't
found
really.
what
I mean,
what he's looking
he
for.
said he said the same thing that Denny Hamlin said. Hamlin said it after he broke his back. It took him another year or whatever to get the feel back in his ass. And Bowman had the same issue. He couldn't have the same. You're going to the corner, bouncing around. You don't have the same feel of what's going on with the car. So I think he's finally got that back. And that's why I can't go with him missing it. I just think that I think he's back to form. When he broke his back, he was the point leader. If he wasn't a point leader, he was second.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think he's back into the shape that he was in prior to his back injury.
my point being at the potential of how many winners we have seen. I'm not saying that he won't be up there in the points. I'm just saying if he doesn't win, he might get knocked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if for some reason he does what Denny almost did in 21, which is win the regular season championship without winning a race, he wouldn't need to win.
No, that's true. But yeah, that would. I mean, but he's got to win. But he would have to win the regular season championship, though.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
we also don't know if NASCAR is changing the playoff stuff. We don't know if they're gonna because there's all there. I don't know how many people are saying this. I just heard one person say it, but there's potential of the top three making it in points because we had Truex get knocked out in what year was that? 22.
yeah,
Yeah, the first
Truex
year, the
got
next
knocked
year.
out. Yeah, he got knocked out, and he was third in points.
yep.
So we don't know what they're going to do with that. Whether the whether we're going to flip the way the playoffs are done, or in the last 3 years of the playoffs, the championship round. We don't know what they're going to do with that. So there might be rules that we're not in privy to yet that changes how everything works out for who makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
So you mean we're gonna have to come back and do another one of these shows then?
Just
No, I mean
one.
we're just talking about who we think are
I
going to win races.
I know.
We're not inviting you back, so it's not. Just kidding.
So, on a different topic, we got 1 year of this unbranded Chevy. What do we think they're going to do? I know you and I've talked about it, Blake. We think it's going to be a Cadillac. You same way, Chris? You think they're going to switch to Cadillac branding?
That it makes sense. I mean, if you look at the overall body style and what they run, I mean, ultimately you go and the biggest thing would be is looking at all the other series. I mean, that's going to be the most comparable car that they run in almost every other series in the country right now would be Cadillac through IMSA and a lot of the road racing
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, I understand it's still under the GM banner, but why would you not? Well, that being under the GM banner is what makes that make sense for me.
Yeah, not to mention in 26 they are going to F1. Why would you not want to show what your F1's going to be running Cadillac, but why not show that what that Cadillac looks like on the street?
Yep. I agree. No, I'm I'm leaning that way for a multitude of reasons. One, GM only has one car left under the Chevy banner, and that's the Malibu under production. The Corvette can't be used, as far as I can tell, because it's a mid-engine car. I don't know how you market that as a NASCAR car with a front engine and a mid-engine production car. Like those two things don't square up. If their goal is to make it look more like that, and the Corvette is so low to the ground and the front end, I don't think you can actually fit all the telemetry of a cup car inside the under the front end if you had to. Uh, you'd have to drop that car way down and give it such an aerodynamic advantage. I don't see GM or Toyota and Ford ever signing off on that
Yeah.
from a competition standpoint. So I feel like it has to be Cadillac because that's the only platform left they have that they make cars. Everything else, their SUVs
The
are
only other
cars.
thing that makes sense is that they got something else in R&D that they
Coming
haven't
back.
shown
Yeah.
anybody that they've got done very well at holding it under wraps. I've shown both of you. They've shown rumors of bringing the Bel Air back and other. I saw a render for a Beretta the other day that looked really awesome. But those
El
are just
Camino, baby. El Camino for the trucks.
oh my God.
Well, the Chevelle,
Yeah.
I heard rumored that they're going to bring the Chevelle back, but
I've been hearing that for 10 years.
yeah,
So I feel like Cadillac is probably the safest bet. I think it'll be a good looking race car. It marries up well to the fact that they're going to be going Formula One racing. They already race at IMSA. They already race it in Le Mans and everything else.
and for me, the Cadillac makes more sense if you look at it from the standpoint of exactly why, just the horsepower ratio. I mean, power plant, what they run on the streets compared to what we're. I mean, that's
It's so close.
what's that?
It's so close.
Yeah,
Yep.
because it's sad to sit and look at Dodge sit here and tell us, well, you're never going to see us back in the sport because our street cars run more horsepower than the cup cars do. And I mean,
True.
it's sad that NASCAR, for whatever reason, seems to be so against bringing back the high horsepower. I mean, I get that. Well, we want to limit speeds. Well, you guys have proved you can put out a 550 horsepower engine, and it's going to go just as fast as the 900 horsepower engine was going.
Yep.
Yeah.
So taking away the horsepower to me is a bullshit excuse.
Yep. You can add drag to the cars to slow them down without taking away the horsepower.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it seemed like every time they came to Kentucky, when they had higher horsepower, every time they came to Kentucky, and that might have been why the races weren't as good as some people thought they should have been, is because every time they came to Kentucky, they were trying out a different drag or different like high spoiler, lower spoiler, different
Yeah.
cutout on the front end. They always chose Kentucky to try out these new things, and that's possibly something they need to start doing that again, or have every team come to a test and go, hey, we're trying this, instead of we'll try it next year, maybe, possibly, probably not.
Yeah.
yeah,
As far as I feel like it's going to have to be Cadillac because they're the only brand under the GM envelope that has more than one car tier at this point. You've got the CT5, the CT4, and different iterations, but that's it. You've got what would be a smaller car for the Xfinity platform and a larger car for the Cup platform, which is the traditional model of business model that they've gone with, and then you've got
Yeah.
the V series, CT4V. Even I could see being the car or the CT5V, just like they had the ZL1. So I could see either one of those being your Cup and Xfinity cars. But
I
GM only
agree.
has the Malibu, and like I said, unless they've got something up their sleeve, they're going to bring back. Which I don't know what they bring back. Ford got rid of every car except for the Mustang. They don't even make a car, so the Mustang is their only option currently.
They don't make the Fusion anymore, or the 500.
No, they're discontinuing those.
Wow.
So
yeah, I don't, and that, and even still, it's funny because Dodge won't come back because the horsepower difference, and
But
we're
they have
sitting.
the most amount of cars.
What's that?
They still have the Challenger, the Charger, that.
yep.
Well, what I was getting at is, but we turn around and you keep looking at the cars that they bring in, well, that we had forever. The Ford Taurus, the uh, Monte Carlo,
Yep.
they never horsepower that they were running.
The
Those cars,
Impala. Yep.
those cars were never produced with the horsepower that they were running, and now, yeah, it just that a lot of it just doesn't make sense. The direction that they've gone throughout the years, they seem to keep shooting themselves in the foot, and it's confusing to me. I
Well, it's
don't.
hard not to see the correlation between the time Brian France leaves, Jim France takes over, and all of a sudden now we care that the horsepower under the hood needs to be closely associated to the production car like IMSA.
Yeah,
Prior to that, didn't matter.
yeah.
You weren't buying a Buick with 1,000 horsepower back in
So
the.
you think one guy is the driving force behind that? You don't think
I
there's more
I
than?
don't think it's the correlation he just brought up with Jim. I think it's more what the hell's his name? The dipshit that keeps screwing up the schedule.
Ben Kennedy.
The kid. I can't remember his name.
Yep,
That's Ben
Kennedy.
Kennedy.
Oh yeah, Kennedy. Yeah, I think it has more to do with Ben Kennedy than it does with anything. A lot
Well,
of these.
Ben Kennedy don't have anything. He's in control of the schedule and like one other thing. He doesn't really. It's
I
Jim France that has the
unfortunately.
you. I didn't hear what you said because you zoned out.
I think he's in control of a lot more than we think he is, unfortunately, just because he's one of the kids.
I agree. I think he's got more say probably than we know. Um, But I
Now,
also don't think it's a coincidence that they specifically named Jim France in the lawsuit. Jim France does have a
Yeah,
significant. They didn't name his sister. They didn't name Lisa.
yeah.
yeah,
They named Jim specifically. So, well, if you want to know everything NASCAR is doing in the lawsuit, why wouldn't you name both of them? I mean, they're both equally powerful, right? I don't. That does not appear that way. It appears
yeah,
that there's only one guy steering this ship, and his name is Jim.
Yeah,
Everybody thought it was for the better. They may be thinking twice on that, a couple years down the road here. But
right.
and yeah, yeah. I mean, especially seeing that. I mean, Jim's over top of NASCAR, and Lisa's the one that's over top of what is it, the ISC.
yeah, the track side.
So, I mean, even if you were going to do a loss, would you not include them both? It's more confusing than why just Jim.
Yeah, because if you're arguing over money and fairness,
You might as well have all hands on deck.
yep. Honestly, I'd have brought in SMI while I was at it. Just get them all.
Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, we all know where I stand on FSMI.
Well, I'm just saying, like from a, we're jumping from topic to topic now. We're having fun, but if we're talking about a charters and a monetary split issue, and yeah, the team's got more money, but the tracks, you know, NASCAR's double dipping because they've got ISC and they get their cut. SMI is double dipping, triple dipping because they're getting it from multiple TV contracts. The Xfinity deal, the Craftsman deal, and the four-way partner charter deal with multiple TV partners. So they're getting paid multiple buckets of money there, plus any events they've got from the outside. Like I would have taken them all.
Yeah,
I would have dragged in the Smith family and the France family. Like you're all coming.
Well, and
All of you are gonna open up your books. You're telling me I need to watch how I spend my money. I'm gonna make you show how you're spending the money and why are my stands at Darlington in disrepair? Why do I not have handicap access? Why do I not have updated bathrooms? Why are my elevators not working? Why do I have not, why are all these things that should be stay there? Why are my catch fences not higher for safety? And why am I having parking problems? You guys are taking in not millions, not tens of millions, hundreds of millions between the three series just within NASCAR alone, plus all the other venue events and the other series that come there from IndyCar, from sports car, from in some cases Formula One, or Trans Am, super late model, and then you get concerts and fairs and stuff. Like there's no excuse in my mind financially for why any of these tracks are in disrepair or why the team shouldn't be getting more money.
yeah. Like we spoke about earlier, Darlington was built in the 50s,
Yep.
and it should be paid off, and it should be immaculate right now. And it, like we said before, looks like when you go there, when you go to the bathrooms, looks like you're going to the 50s.
So, all right. Well, this has been fun.
Absolutely.
And our timer didn't go off. I love
Yeah,
this.
I love it. I do. I love it too.
but I do want to ask you this one, though, Alan, because I know I've talked to Blake about this, but I kind of want to get your opinion on this. How many times did you hear, especially over the last year, it doesn't really matter how many people are in the stands? The big focus right now for the sport is how many people are watching on TV. That's where we're getting the
Yep.
TV from. That's how we're moving forward. And that is exactly the direction that the sport wants to go in right now.
Mhm.
Until everybody says, we don't like where the championship race is. Can we go back to Homestead? Well, no, because it doesn't sell out. So how come that's the only race of the
Yeah.
year that matters whether or not we sell out?
Yep. I agree. I'm 110% with you. Hearing that over and over again makes my blood boil. And Blake and I talked about it a little bit before we pulled you in that, um, you know, part of why I don't. So, from some back history, my uncle used to be an RCCA dealer. That's how I got into collecting cars.
Right.
You know, he had multiple sets that he would get. He would, all right, like some of mine are all like 1103, for example, serial number 1103, even in the 164s. and then he would sell the ones that weren't part of those sets. And he would go and he would sell them at the tracks and everything. And I remember going to the tracks as a kid, and even in the early 2000s, even when I took my wife after we got married in 05, we had season tickets to Richmond, we had season tickets to Bristol, we had 8 to each one for both races every year. And
Really?
we went and went and went. And I would go to Richmond every day. I would go Friday as soon as I got done with work. I'd watch them practice. I'd go out into the common area and do like the tire challenge thing, tire change challenge, where Goodyear would have something set up. I'd look at the TRD, fan experience, whatever. Same thing when I go to Bristol. And now, like Blake and I saw this year when we went to Bristol, there's really nothing there to speak of to do. They've taken what was a must attend sport and tried to turn it into a must watch sport.
Yeah.
And I personally don't like that. I think it's bad for the health of the sport overall, because if it's going to be just a must watch sport, at some point,
It's not worth watching anymore.
basically you could get to a point where you get out of all the tracks. If you're not worried about the people showing up anymore, then you don't need a diverse array of tracks all over the country and all the markets.
Nope.
Because we argued we're going to Chicago because of the market. Are we going because of the TV market? Because if it's because of the TV market, then I don't need to have the race in downtown Chicago. I could have it at a perfectly good track that puts on a damn good show with this car specifically in Chicago. Because you just said you want it on the TV screen, so you don't give a damn if the track's full. You don't give a damn if people show up to Kentucky.
And I'll give you an example on that one. Last year, when me and my wife went to Vegas, we went down to Vegas for the March race. And I was curious. We walked into 3 or 4 different stores in the week that we were down there. And I asked them, I say, are you guys advertising for the race coming up at all? Do you have anything coming on? Oh, the F1 race? I was like, no, the NASCAR race in 3 days. But every billboard, every TV station, every commercial on the damn TV, all it was, they were promoting the F1 race. Nobody even knew NASCAR was there that weekend.
Yep.
So to sit here and tell us that, oh well, the issues are we don't understand why people stop showing up at the track, because you don't friggin' promote it anymore.
Yep. No. You don't care.
Whether it's NASCAR themselves, whether it's the track, you guys are the ones that drop the ball, and then they seem to get pissed off at us, the fans, when we question it.
Well, like SMI, for example, they openly admitted, and I think Kenny Wallace has said it too, that, Fox basically said, we don't need you anymore. We're going a different direction. But the fans turned around and said, well, we miss having the race day by the Home Depot that Kenny Wallace, John Roberts, Jimmy Spencer, all those people, Kyle Petty, all those people there, that they just did away with and just said, you're not relevant anymore. Kind of like they did with Darrell Waltrip, which he's, from a broadcast perspective, maybe he was past his time, but I still probably would have had him on a stage somewhere as a link to the past, because the man still has all those championships, all those race wins. Racing a car is still racing a car, and they decided that these people weren't basically gentrified enough for the new fan they were chasing, in my mind.
No. And because the one thing that is sad is being at the racetrack, and I ran into this last year, I was able to get my car autographed, but I will say having someone around from the past, like Darrell Waltrip, as opposed to having Dale Jarrett there, Dale Jarrett is not fan friendly at all. He turned around, and the look he gave me when I asked him in that car was like, really, dude, you're out here as a representative of the sport. And he could care less. People were talking to him, and he was not even making eye contact.
Well, to give you an idea about like just the difference between that era of Dale Jarrett, Davey Allison, Rusty Wallace, those guys, my uncle, we used to go to these hospitality things because my mom sold so much bread for Automatic Rolls, who did distribution for McDonald's up and down the East Coast. I got to go to the Redskins into your banquet one year, with meet Herschel Walker, some of those guys. Like it was really neat to see some of this stuff. I didn't realize what I've seen as a kid, but
Yeah.
my uncle has a painting on the wall. Um, like I've got an oil painting up here by the guy, Bear at the time, who was the artist for NASCAR before. Uh, this is right before Sam Bass took over, and Ernie Irvin met my uncle in a hospitality tent for Kodak, and he actually had my uncle sit in his car on pit road. They took pictures of it and everything, and Ernie pretended to interview him like my uncle was the driver for the day.
Yeah.
Then Bear did an oil painting, and it's on his wall of my uncle in Ernie's car on pit lane.
Wow.
Like that kind of stuff would never happen today
No.
because just the way they've segregated everything. They like to say the NASCAR is the most, and it is still, but it's nowhere like it was back then in terms of fan friendly.
NHRA is the most fan friendly sport there is right now.
Which one?
NHRA.
For sure.
Just NHRA and dirt tracks. I mean, the accessibility there is, ridiculous. I'm just looking at it as coming from what we all grew up watching.
Yeah, and going to.
And then getting to see what it's like at the track now is even just to see the attitude of some of the older people. And I think that's where even Dale Jarrett that's why you had Darrell Waltrip a fan favorite. Mm-hmm. That's why you had Dale Jr. a fan favorite. Even to this day, I've never watched. I need you to walk with me, but I've never seen Junior tell a fan no, or just flat out ignore him. I've never seen it. Yep. Even broadcasting, I've never seen it.
Well, like to the point of where they are today to now, or today to, let's just rewind it to 2000. Was it 2010? Yeah, 2010, toward the end of 2010, when they switched over from the wing back to the spoiler.
Yeah.
I was at the Richmond Fall race. I bought a ticket package from this lady who bought it. She bought like the pit passes and everything, couldn't go. So I bought it from her. I took my buddy. We go. We've got pit passes and everything before the Rock and Roll 400. And we go down there. And I'm standing there. And it's like the standard. Race. It used to be such a badass race. And we're watching the cars come through the inspection tent. And then they walk right by. I've got pictures of me standing there talking to Ron Malik and to Alan Gustafson and those guys. I'm asking them questions while they're going through inspection with the cars. Like I can reach out and touch Mark's car. I could take pictures of the inside of it when it was the GoDaddy 5 green and orange.
Yep.
And I'm asking them like, hey, what are these holes for? And they're taking their time. They're explaining it to me. They're answering my questions about it. I wasn't bothering them. They didn't act like they were being bothered by me. And my buddy, we're just standing there. Normal Jersey style barrier, like the little crowd control barriers you have at a concert, was all that separated me from this, I don't know, $250,000 race car. And these guys that, we idolize as mechanics or engineers or crew chiefs, and just shooting the shit like we are right now, answering questions. And you can't do that now. They go in that room of doom and then they're too busy, and then they go and they don't really let you in the garage like they used to. And
no, not without paying out the ass for it, because that's what I've been having to do.
Yeah.
Yep. And even then, the only crew chief that I've actually run into that's been willing to sit and have a conversation with me is Cliff.
Yep.
The last couple times I've been down there now, I'll go up and say something to Cliff, and Cliff will stand there and talk. The rest of them is just a short answer, and they don't even stop walking.
Yeah, I was looking to see if I had those pictures on this drive or somewhere else. I'm going to show you like just literally how close we were.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, tell him about the time you met Cliff with the blacked out Tarleton car.
Tarleton.
Yeah.
That was funny. Not last year, it was the year before, when I took that Tarleton car and walked up and I just asked him, hey, Cliff, would you mind signing this for me? And he turned around, and I understand I know I did earlier, and we're not supposed to cuss on.
Yeah.
It was funny. He's like, Oh fuck! I'm glad you brought that to me. That's my favorite race car. I'm so pissed that we didn't win that race. I completely fucked that race up. I mean, it lit up seeing that car. It was freaking hilarious. Yeah, he stood there and talked for what, probably 10, 15 minutes about that car, just making the mistakes and throwing that race away. That how pissed off he was about it. But yeah,
Now I feel bad that I can't find these pictures, but
We believe you.
well, I got pictures of the Porsche I got to drive that year at the Bristol race. Yeah, I've got them somewhere. And
Somebody let
it's just,
Leadfoot McGee drive a Porsche.
I know. Look, I told the guy when he gave me the keys, I cannot afford to buy this car. If I wreck it, you better have good insurance because I can't afford to buy it.
Oh,
He's like,
I
don't
got
worry about it. I
another.
got two of them. I'm like, okay.
don't worry, I got.
So, but all right, well, gentlemen, it's been fun. Until next time,
Oh yeah,
Absolutely. Had a blast.
have a blast. All right, I'll get this taken down and uploaded, and we'll come up with something for either next week or the week after.
thank you
Absolutely.
guys.
All right,
We got a month until the clash.
hard to believe.
It is very hard to believe.
I'm so ready.
I'm ready, but at the same time, I'm like, I could care less about Bowman Gray or Daytona. Like, just let's start after those first three, and then I'm good.
Yeah, I just I'm I never watched other sports. I mean, I understand them, played them growing up. I just never got into watching them. So, I mean, the only thing I do is NASCAR. So this time of year for me sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I'm in the same boat of
Don't let him lie to you. He likes the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to be 15-2 after this weekend.
we'll see. We'll see. Where the hell are these things? I will find these pictures. I used them as a sample for something, and I'm trying to remember where I used them. It's all from stuff back in 2010 when I was sim racing. And now, nope, not anymore. Oh well, they're around somewhere.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you all soon.
All right.
All right. Have
Until
a good
next
evening.
time, gentlemen. See you.